Pokopia. Pokopia. Oh, this game. Oh, this game. If you take a quick look through my content, you see that I don't normally cover new games. This is for a couple of reasons, mostly because I simply do not have the time it would take to play, record, write, film, and edit a video to get it out while a game is still, fresh and interesting in the public mind. Not at this stage of my life, at least. However, I'm making something of an exception this time around because Pokopia is so freaking good and I love it so much! Honestly, the original impetus for this video was just to justify how many hours I've been putting into Pokopia recently. Now, you might correctly point out that it has been over 3 months since Pokopia released. Why am I making this video now and not, back then? Well, that's because I didn't get Pokopia when it launched. Despite it being an overnight phenomenon, it seemed, I was pretty happy to sit this one out. You see, every so often, a very specific type of new game will drop. These games will take over the internet for a time, and everyone will be posting about how much they love them. These games are usually described as low stress and have little violence or action of any kind. Most won't even have true failure states and can be enjoyed at your own pace. These games normally focus on meeting people, making friends with the NPCs, and getting to know the quaint little area you call home. A lot of these games feature farming and, some basic crafting mechanics, allowing for a high level of customizability and personal touches to your own experience that are unique to only you. The internet calls these sorts of games cozy games. And I just don't really like them at all. That is until I played Pokopia. This game has all of the trademarks of cozy games. There's no way to lose or die. The focus of the game is on making friends and making them comfortable. And yes, there are farming and crafting and building mechanics. It's pretty obviously a cozy game, a genre that I just stated I don't normally like, and yet I can't stop playing it. That's why in today's video we're discussing how Pokopia fixed the cozy game genre, for me at least. Now, I probably already put up some footage of other cozy games, but let's real quick just cover some specifically and what it is that makes me normally not enjoy them. Like any attempt to categorize the arts, the cozy game genre doesn't have a hard definition. I mean, technically speaking, any game can be a cozy game if you find it cozy to play. However, when people talk about them, they're normally what I described in that intro. Games that are, generally speaking, fairly open-ended with little to no failure states and a focus on relaxing, making friends, and having a pleasant time. Some notable examples of cozy games include Tomodachi Life, Harvest Moon, The Sims, and probably dozens of others. These games are all incredibly popular in their own right, so why don't I enjoy them? I mean, am I just a bitter old man with a heart of stone, or am I just an immature child who can't enjoy anything unless I can blow something up? Surprisingly, yes to both questions, but that's not why I don't usually enjoy cozy games. I've actually tried on multiple occasions to get into this genre. The two cozy games I have spent the most time playing are Stardew Valley and the Animal Crossing series. I've actually been playing Animal Crossing games since the GameCube, and I own every game in the series. In this video, when I reference my issues with cozy games, these are going to be the two games that I reference the most. Let me also stress right now that I do not think cozy games, and especially these games in particular, are bad. Quite the opposite, I think they're really great games in their own right. The overall point of this video is that I struggle to get the same level of enjoyment and enrichment that other people seem to have, yet I don't have that issue with Pokopia, and I want to explore why that is. What did this game do that these other two titans of the genre didn't? I'll mention specific issues I have with both games as we dig into things, but let's start with a broad point. What's my issue with cozy games? It really comes down to one thing in particular. There's a point in every one of these games where I just realize there's nothing more for me to really do. I mean, you might say, yeah, duh, obviously a game has to have a point where you've done everything, but that's not really what I mean. In the narrative-heavy games that I normally play when I'm having fun, there is a point where there isn't anything more to do, and that's called the end of the game. The credits roll and you know it's time to shut down the console and go do something else for a time, you fat lazy moron. Cozy games, however, are open-ended. Technically speaking, there is no end. You can keep playing indefinitely. Now that alone isn't a bad thing per se, but the rewards for continuing just never feel worth it to me, at least after a point. I don't normally spend my waking hours when I am out and about in society, being a responsible adult, thinking about how excited I am to get back to a game like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley. But I have spent every minute of my day since starting Pokopia thinking about the next time I get to play Pokopia. So, what gives? Now, let's go ahead and dig into some specific things Pokopia gets so right. Alright, let's just go ahead and address the Great Tusk in the room. The most obvious difference between Pokopia and Animal Crossing is that this game has that sweet, sweet Pokemon branding on it. Seeing as I am a self-admitted shill for this franchise, is that all it takes? Slap a Pokemon logo on something and I'll eat it up, even if it's something that I don't normally like. Well, not exactly. While the notion of catching them all will literally always get my late 90s, early 2000s kid brain in gear, this alone is not enough to compensate for why I like Pokopia so much more than other games. It is enough to make me try Pokopia in the first place, I will admit that. If this was Temtopia, I probably wouldn't be making this video. Both Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley have aspects that activate that similar collecting pathway that decades of playing Pokemon has burned into my cerebral cortex. Fishing, particularly in Animal Crossing, is a good example, which also segues into the museum collectibles. This was always my main goal when playing Animal Crossing games, by the way. I spent far more time trying to make sure the museum was decked out than I ever spent trying to make my own home look good. Stardew Valley has a museum too, but this one isn't that good, truth be told. Stardew does have some other collection mechanics as well, namely the community center quests. Just like with the museum in Animal Crossing, Stardew's community center was always the focus of my playthroughs of that game, and looking back on both of them, it was always around the time that I completed Stardew's community center or maxed out on all the bugs and fish I could expect to find in a season in Animal Crossing that I would normally drop both of those games. Some part of me can't help but see games like these and focus on whatever the collection quest is. But that's not really how the games are intended to be played. Now obviously you can play any game however you want, but the developers clearly had something in mind when they made them. The focus of both Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley is supposed to be on the villagers, though Stardew also intends you split your focus between them and the farm. The developers of both games clearly expected the player to spend time interacting with the townsfolk, yet when I played, I normally ignored most of the townsfolk and focused on completing what was, to me at least, the far more interesting and important quest. I didn't have this problem when I played Pokopia, and I think it's because of some pretty clever game design. You see, collecting stuff in Animal Crossing and Stardew was an optional side objective. Pokopia made it the main objective and merged it with the making friends with villagers objective. You see, you're told in the literal first seconds of the game that your goal is to create habitats for Pokemon. The Pokemon simultaneously serve as your object of collection and as your villagers. While Animal Crossing and Stardew do offer the player the ability to recruit a handful of more people to your cause, there are many obvious limitations to that. A town can only reasonably hold so many people in the first place. Pokopia doesn't have that problem, as the game world is designed to be easily torn apart and built back together again in any way the player really wants. The only limitations on Pokemon habitats are really on what the player can imagine for them in the first place, and what the Pokemon might like. You can also relocate these Pokemon super easily, which is something that's incredibly useful to this end. Pokopia goes further than just making the villagers into collectibles. They also made the villagers actively useful to the player, meaning even Pokemon you probably wouldn't interact with are still worth interacting with. Where the villagers in Animal Crossing can be almost entirely ignored if the player wants to, the Pokemon in Pokopia are an active requirement to accomplish any goal, be it part of the plot or self-imposed. Pokemon process materials for you, which are obviously necessary to craft everything. Fire types make clay bricks, Pokemon like Scyther turn logs into lumber, and Pokemon like Graveler can even make stuff like concrete. Every Pokemon has some ability that makes them actively useful to the player. Even the ones that don't have the most useful abilities can still be put to use through the building mechanics. In order to build pre-made structures, which you're required to do for the plot, you have to assign a team of Pokemon to work the project. Someone like a builder is always required, and different structures usually require different abilities, but all projects require at least one Pokemon that can be just a total wild card. I was pretty routinely putting Pokemon I haven't even thought about since like 2006, like Volbeat and Illumise, to work on houses or other structures for me. You can even sort of roleplay it if you really want to by only choosing Pokemon that you think might be able to legitimately build whatever particular structure you're working on. And there's even an element of strategy to it all, especially when you don't have a ton of Pokemon in a specific area. You might do what I did in the Sparkling Skylands and accidentally set your only Pokemon with the Crush skill to work on a building, only to realize that you now have no one to make concrete and have to go back and set up a mixer in one of the other maps to get the materials you need. All of this has the net result of making every villager you recruit more than just a body that takes up space in town. You develop an actual connection to each one of them, even if it is based on pure practicality. Pokopia also does the real-time system in a way that complements this whole thing. Stardew doesn't work this way, but Animal Crossing has always used the system clock to determine when various events will happen. This has long been a pain for many people, even die-hard fans. Inevitably, there will come a point in time where all you can really do is turn off the game and come back tomorrow. While that is probably pretty healthy, it also kinda sucks that your game will limit you from playing it, not by having some sort of challenge barring your way that you have to theoretically redouble your efforts on and overcome, but by simply making you be patient. Pokopia also uses the system clock, but I think it does it a lot better. Namely the fact that there's literally always something you can be doing in Pokopia. Gather resources, check on habitats, talk with Pokemon. It still does limit you, and it can feel like a pain, especially if you are trying to catch them all, but it doesn't feel like all progress has been halted by the slow pace of real time. Even the biggest build projects are always ready by tomorrow at the latest. There is another reason I am obsessed with Pokopia and wasn't obsessed with Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley, at least to the same extent. It largely has to do with the fact that Pokopia has an actual gosh dang plotline. I'll admit that this is probably going to be the most subjective part of my critique. There are plenty of games that have little to no story and are still epic. Animal Crossing and Stardew have little to no story and are still epic. I get that. I understand that a plot is not necessary for a game to be good, but a plot is necessary for me to be chomping at the bit for every second of gameplay I can squeeze out of it. Funnily enough, a large part of my playthrough was actually trying to postpone finishing the game as I was having so much fun playing it. However, the point stands that Pokopia actually does have a plot. Each of the 4 playable areas has clear objectives that the player needs to complete. It's not even that complicated of a plot, truth be told. Rocky Ridge's plotline is basically just throwing a party for your Pokemon inhabitants. That said, Pokopia does do a couple things with its plot that keep people like myself hooked. For starters, each world features at least one unique Pokemon that is totally new to the series, always a variant of a pre-existing Pokemon. Professor Tangrowth, DJ Rotom, and the Tink Master all come to mind. It's not much, truth be told, and I did know most of them going into this game because of trailers, but that didn't stop me from wondering what special new Pokemon I would run into next. The second reason I was hooked is tied to the first. The conclusion of each area of the game involves Ditto and the crew running into a legendary Pokemon, who ultimately contributes in some way to completing whatever goal you are going for in that area. Again, it ain't much, but after it happened the first time, the whole time I was exploring a new area, building new habitats, meeting new Pokemon, and gathering the resources necessary to complete whatever the task would be, the legendary of that area was hanging over me. I had no clue how many areas there would be in this game when I first started, as I had done a pretty good job at avoiding spoilers since release, so I had no idea if I'd see full legendary trios or not. It was a fun guessing game to try and deduce what legendary Pokemon would appear when everything was said and done. I was trying to figure out what sort of Pokemon would solve the issues of the area, and I'm actually legitimately happy to say I was wrong every single time. I like that. I truly couldn't predict where this game would go, despite the relatively simple plot lines each area of the game had. Now, is it fair to say that Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley don't have plots? Yes, absolutely it is. Every Animal Crossing game is completely done telling anything resembling a story by the time the tutorial section is complete. Stardew definitely has more of a plot with Grandpa's will at the beginning of the game and the community center questline, plus a handful of other bits and bobs around, but it's all disconnected and disjointed. It's not bad that these games didn't have a plot, but for my own personal enjoyment, I need that little taste of a storyline, just a little bit. Just a drip or two to keep my engine primed, because apparently my ability to enjoy games on a mental level is indistinguishable from starting a weed whacker. Pokopia went further than just having a plot though, and this is what really gave me the fuel to keep going. What it did was go beyond just a plot. It had a mystery. Presented to you from literally your very first moments in the game, the entirety of Pokopia is based around one solitary mystery. Where the heck is everyone? The world you enter in Pokopia is not the peaceful and tranquil small-town dream world of Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley. Pokopia's world is dead, as in it was alive and now it isn't. Something had to make it this way, and someone has to fix it. That someone is us, and the something is at the center of basically everything you do in the game. The central mystery isn't even what went wrong in any area. That much will be obvious just from exploring it for a short period of time. The true mystery is one that Professor Tangrowth asks you about every single time. What happened to the humans? Because this world used to be inhabited. That much is obvious. I went into this game expecting Pokemon Mystery Dungeon rules. My assumption is that it would be a world of Pokemon for Pokemon, and that the humans wouldn't really be a factor. Instead, I got Pokemon Fallout New Vegas. Some sort of horrendous, globe-spanning cataclysm may or may not have totally wiped out civilization as we know it, and we're the only ones who have the ability to rebuild it. Like any good post-apocalyptic scenario, throughout the game you can find notes and log entries discussing what happened and what it all means. I'm not going to spoil the specifics any more than I might have already, as they are definitely best discovered for yourself if you want the full impact. But the mystery of what happened to humanity is this all-encompassing question that haunts the entire rest of the narrative. When Professor Tangrowth wonders whether the work you're doing will truly bring back the humans, it not only makes you want to keep going, to keep building, and maybe, just maybe, realize that dream, it also reminds you that these Pokemon, they're really just animals. Intelligent animals, no doubt, but they don't understand what has happened, and neither do we, the audience. This connects humans and Pokemon in a way I don't think has ever been done before, by paradoxically putting distance between them. It's a fascinating avenue for the Pokemon franchise as a whole, and on the level of just this game, it really helps make the entire experience a memory to treasure. And just go back to our other cozy games. They don't do this. Stardew does have some interesting lore hidden away for the player to find, but that stuff is not only optional, it doesn't have nearly the same emotional weight that the mystery of where humanity went has in Pokopia. There is one last point I want to make on this mystery thing. The cherry on top of all of this wonderful sundae of intrigue is that the places the player is exploring aren't just random areas of the Pokemon world. It's not just some random lot that you're rehabilitating. All 4 of the areas are supposed to be iconic cities from the Kanto region, the very first place people ever visited in the Pokemon world. You can visit real, famous locations from the Pokemon world, but now they're torn to shreds. The wreck of the SS Anne off the coast of Vermilion City, the Pewter City Museum, buried under volcanic ash and rock. I've walked through these places before. I've fought with my Pokemon here, and now they're just gone. This really isn't fair to bring up in comparison to Stardew or Animal Crossing. Both games are/were new franchises that were built up with the cozy game genre as part of their DNA. Pokopia is an established franchise with over 30 years of history and lore. Obviously, those other two can't really tug at the heartstrings of longtime fans by setting their game in a world that's already deeply familiar to them. It truly wouldn't be fair to expect that of them, and I don't hold this against them. Pokopia, however, didn't have to include this angle, and it did. And that just adds another layer of emotional weight to this wonderful game. I think that really does it for my big thoughts on Pokopia. And I repeat what I said at the front. I did not go into this game expecting to have the amazing time that I did with it. I expected a fun but temporary distraction that I would ultimately abandon after a short period of time. And I have never been happier to be wrong. Pokopia was a significantly more special and meaningful entry in the Pokemon franchise than I ever could have anticipated. And again, it's not that other games in this genre are bad. I want to reiterate that. If you prefer some of them to Pokopia, that is a totally valid take on the situation. I'm just saying that for me, For my money, I'll take Pokopia any day of the week. I'm also glad that my adventure doesn't have to end just yet. I started working on this video before the June 9th Nintendo Direct, but they just announced in that Direct that Pokopia will be getting 3 new areas as DLC, with the first one being entirely underwater. Underwater building was one of the biggest problems that the base game had, so this is already a great addition. And I am incredibly excited to see what these new cities are. I'm guessing that Bubbly Basin is actually Cinnabar Island sunk into the sea, but that's just a hunch, and I can't wait to find out the truth. With that, I better get back to building my towns in Pokemon Pokopia. If you liked the video, be sure to like it, comment below, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for more all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, bye.